Hello everybody, today's video is going to be a little bit different than usual. Instead of just showing you a time-lapse with some music, I'm actually going to be explaining the process of how I make these low poly guns for my games, so you can maybe have a better idea of what's going on, and hopefully my commentary will be interesting. In this video I'll be remaking the H&K USP model I made for my game, as I don't believe that model is up to the quality standards that I have set with my more recent work. The first thing I do whenever I'm making a model in Blender is gather references. The longer I've been doing Blender, the more and more references I've been gathering before I even start working on a model. I usually try to get as many different angles as I can, mainly left, right, front, and back, and also get pictures of any specific details I will need to get just right, like the bullet, sights, and magazine. Once I have my reference images, I'll trace out the general shape of the weapon in wireframe mode. This part is pretty simple and doesn't take too long, but it's really important to get the proper profile for the weapon before you start adding any details. A lot of times when I'm making these guns, I take a sort of layered approach, kind of like those wood model kits you can buy off Amazon that uses layers of wood in different shapes to create a 3D shape. This means making a lot of edge loops running from front to back and then moving the faces on the x-axis to try to get the width of the gun correct in as many areas as possible. After I've blocked out the model, I usually start adding details and adding chamfers to edges to get a realistic and rounded look, while also maintaining the low poly art style. For more complex details that don't fit into the layered approach, I'll create separate cutout objects and then use a Boolean difference modifier to remove geometry where the model and the cutout intersect. These modifiers have to be applied at the end of the modeling process, however, as the mirror modifier has to be applied first, otherwise the Boolean will not work properly. For example, in order to make a hole for the barrel through the slide in the body, I used a cylindrical cutout and a Boolean difference modifier. This is a technique I've started to employ more and more as I've made more Blender models, and it has really allowed me to make complex details more accurately and quickly when compared to modeling the details directly onto the geometry. Another thing I make sure to pay attention to is separating all the moving parts into separate objects. Since I'm making my models for use in game development, it's really important that anything that needs to be animated is separated into its own object so that I can move it around in Unity. For the USP, that means the slide, trigger, hammer, magazine, safety, and more will be made as separate objects so that I can animate them. At this point, I'm just adding details to the model like the trigger, safety, slide release, and sights. Since these sights are actually going to be used in the game, getting them to line up perfectly is very important. To do this, I go into orthographic mode and center my view on the y-axis by using the little matrix at the top right corner, which gives me a perfect sight picture and allows me to ensure that the front and rear sights are aligned. Since I'm remaking a model I've already made previously, I simply imported the bullet from that model and used it to scale the rest of the model accordingly. That way when I replace it in-game the scale will be correct. Once the main features of the gun are all complete, it's time to create any attachments I might use in the game. I was originally just going to make a silencer and a flashlight, but the USP in Half-Life 2 just looked so cool that I had to try to make a compensator for the gun too. So I found a reference online and got to work on that. While I was at it, I decided to make a reflex sight and extended magazine too. Maybe this will pave the way for a more advanced attachment system for my game in the future. Once I have everything modeled, I start applying materials to the different parts of the gun. I try to keep everything as separate materials instead of using a single texture because it's easier and it allows me to change the material properties of different parts of the gun, letting me make some parts shiny and some parts not. After that, I add a plane to the scene to serve as a background, give it a color, add a sun and a camera, position the camera, set up my post-processing effects, and render out the image to create the final product. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and found it interesting. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments section, and consider subscribing to see more videos like this. Bye!